Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and this is Margot Kinberg, Associate Professor and Mystery Novelist. Welcome Margot.
Hello.
Hello. So why don't you tell us a bit more about you and how you got into mystery writing?
Well, it's interesting. I loved mystery novels since I was a little girl. I started as a child with Sherlock Holmes and all that sort of thing. And then when I was a young teenager, I got hooked on Agatha Christie, and I've never looked back. One night at the dinner table a few years ago, my husband and daughter and I were sitting around, as families do, talking about the ins and outs of academia, which is a whole other interview in itself. And my husband said, you should write a book about this. And my daughter said, yeah, you should. So I thought, well, why not give it a go? Why not? So we had a long talk that night, and we mapped out the characters and talked about sort of what sort of murder would happen. And before you know it, Publisher Parish was published.
Wow, that's amazing. So how long did it take from the idea to having your book out there?
About 8 months from idea to writing, and then a few months, a little over a year.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And you've actually got, well, I think your latest book is Be Very Flat. That's your latest book? Yeah. So I had a look at that, and it looks really interesting because, first of all, as you said, oh, there it is. It's gorgeous. And it centres around a group of musicians as well as the investigation into the murder. So I wondered about your research. Did you have to do a lot of research into the music kind of culture? It's something I know absolutely nothing about, as well as the crime.
Well, excuse me, I actually had a little bit of an advantage there. I have a cousin who is a musician, a professional, and although I didn't follow her about when she was getting her background, I did kind of hear what goes on. And I've always loved music myself. I'm a musician, although I have never filled a stadium or anything like that. So I know just a little bit about making music and what it is involved, and so I used that background. I did ask a few questions of people I know in the field just to be sure I had my facts right. Mm-hmm. Now, the crime investigation was a little different because I'm, at least in public, I'm an innocent person. Don't have a lot of experience myself in police stations, so I had to go to our local police station. And I was actually very generously assisted by people who work there that set me straight on things like interviewing, what the process is for getting evidence, that kind of thing, which was very helpful to me. So I did do some research. But yeah, weaving them together was interesting.
Yeah, and maybe you could just tell us a bit about the academia side, because you're an associate professor and you're obviously in the university sort of system, and both your books, I believe, are around that area as well. Why is that so inspiring to you?
Mostly because I've got such a lot of background in academia. I know by now kind of how the ins and outs work, the politics. Of course, every institution is different. So the politics that work in one institution aren't the same as in another. But one of the things about academia is you've got so many disparate people all in the same place. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the line. There are all sorts of personal dramas going on. And it's just a wonderful field for that reason. The other thing about academia that really works for a mystery, is that the setting itself, the geographic settings of most institutions are just lovely if you look at them. And some of them are old, and that's all mysterious. Some of them, even the new ones, all have stories to tell. To me, it's a really ripe context for a mystery.
No, I think you're right. It fascinates me as well. So, yeah, that's great. Okay, so I wondered if you would give us your sort of 3 top tips for writing mystery and, the things that make a really good mystery.
Well, the first tip I have for anyone that wants to start crafting a mystery is read, read, read. Read, especially in the genre that you want to write in. For example, you want to write a cozy mystery. Read a lot of them. Find out what cozy mystery readers want to read about. Find out what authors in the field are writing about. find out as much as you can so you have a basis for knowledge. That's first tip, is get your background. And maybe that's my academic background peeping through again. But you can't contribute until you know what you're doing. So first, read. Secondly, I would say break it into stages. Writing a mystery story weaves a lot of little things together. You have to have plot, character, you have to put the clues in if it's a whodunit. You have to decide just how much violence or not violence you want. You have to decide all sorts of things. And it can be daunting. I had days, still do, had days when it all seems a bit much. But if you break it down into small bits, then what happens is it's not so bad. Today you're doing one thing. Tomorrow you're doing another thing. And before you know it, it's woven together, if you know what I mean. And the third tip is, and this is, I think, the hardest thing, don't give up. Keep working on it. Keep putting it together. Keep focused on the story you're going to tell. Anything that takes away from that story takes away from the novel. Keep at it. Keep at it. Don't let the inevitable things like rejections and beta readers who don't like what you've created and suggestions that aren't as welcome as you'd like, don't let them get to you. Keep working at it.
That's fantastic. And are you writing your next one now?
I am, thank you. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, through the actual writing of it, and then of course there's editing and revising and that sort of thing. The story is already up here, it's just a matter of finishing putting it on paper.
Yes, I know that feeling, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Agatha Christie earlier, and I think on your blog as well you write quite a lot about Agatha Christie, but maybe you could talk a bit about her and why she's one of your favourites, and also if there's any other favourites you have.
Agatha Christie is one of my favorites. Now that said, like anyone else, I can pick holes in this or that of her stories, but consistently, one of the reasons she's my favorite is her stories are consistently intelligent mysteries. She had a genius for leading you down the garden path, and then, oh, there's another twist. Oh, there's a surprise. More than once I've been caught unawares, and not unfairly either, which is the real genius. So I love that about her mysteries. Now, again, and I could go on and on about this, there are all sorts of criticisms people make about her work, and some of them are justified. But as far as an overall highly gifted genius writer, my favorite, well, among my favorite top 3 or 4 is definitely Agatha Christie. However, for character development, for interesting people you want to read more about, among my top is Michael Connelly. If you're not familiar with his Harry Bosch series, get familiar with it. It's fantastic series. And over the years, he's developed these characters more and more so that you open your stories and you just want to read about them. You want to find out what he's been doing lately. Another author whom I like very much for character development and for setting is Alexander McCall Smith. He's got a few series that I like. My favorite is the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. Wonderful characters, wonderful setting, wonderful, gentle, quiet adventures. Not for those who like thrillers, I admit, but that's okay too. I also like Deborah Crombie's character development and mysteries, and I'm beginning to be quite a fan of P.V. Martin's Sophie Anderson series. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but she's got one of the best blends that I've read lately in the more recent authors of thriller but not gratuitous gore, of character development but not for at the loss of plot, that kind of thing. So there are others that I love, but those are some of the ones that I've been reading a lot of lately and really think quite a lot of.
No, that's great. That's given me some new people to be reading as well. Fantastic. Okay, so where can people find you and your books online?
Okay, thank you. Both of my books Be Very Flat and Publisher Parish are on Amazon.com. That's probably the quickest way for people who aren't comfortable looking around. You can find me at margotkinberg.blogspot.com. I have my own blog, or if it's easier for you, just Google my name. My blog title is Confessions of a Mystery Novelist, and you can find me there. All sorts of clickables, too, to the other places where I lurk.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Margot. That was great.
Thanks very much.